Hey guys, it's Cassera, and today I'm going to be doing the mid-year book freakout tag. No idea how excited I am for this tag. I'm so excited for this tag. Last year when I saw this tag for the first time, it actually made me want to start a booktube channel, which obviously I didn't start it till December, so I didn't get to do this tag last year. So I've been so excited to do this tag all year long, and I know I'm a little late on it because this month has been super busy, and this is my only third video of the month, but it's okay. Thank you to the Book Bella for tagging me in this. I will link her video down below. I'm super excited to get into it, so let's get to the questions. So the first question is, of course, what is the best book that you've read this year so far? There was no way I was gonna be able to choose between these books, but 100% my favorite series that I've read this year so far is the Liveship Trilogy by Rob and Hobb. This series is the second trilogy in the Realm of the Elderling series, and it is so good. I absolutely love everything about this series. It takes place in Bingtown, which is like, it's south of the Six Duchies. If you've read the Farseer trilogy, this takes place after those events, and it has to do with the Bingtown traders and their families. And I just love the way it was set up, because it was set up in a very family drama sort of way, which you don't really get a whole lot in fantasy, and I loved that aspect of it. It was so complex. The characters had so much development. I love that about this series, and I just love this entire series in general, but the Liveship Traders trilogy was really where I found my love for the Realm of the Elderlings and Rob and Hobb in general. So I love the series so much, and I'm like itching to go back and reread the series right now, like itching to do it, and I'm so excited to continue on with this entire series, because I just finished the Tawny Man trilogy. So yeah, there's not much left now, but yes, so good. The next question is the best sequel that you've read so far. So I actually have a lot of these also. I read a lot of series, a lot of series, so I have a lot of options here, but I'm just gonna go with three really good ones. The first one is Us Against You by Fredrik Backman. This is the sequel to Beartown, also by Fredrik Backman, obviously, and it is very different in the sense that it does follow a lot of the same characters, but it doesn't have the same themes. But the themes that it does follow, I feel like, are just as impactful and emotional as Beartown was. I still like Beartown more than Us Against You, but I just think this was a really great follow-up, and I loved being back in this town, and the complexities of the characters and all of their relationships was just so well done, and I love that about this series. The next one is The Girl Who Played with Fire by Steig Larrson. This is the second book in the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series. I absolutely love this book so much. Like, I haven't talked too much about it on my channel yet, just because I literally just finished this book, but it was so good. Like, the emotions that you feel, like, with the stakes raised from The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the stakes just raised so much more in The Girl Who Played with Fire, and I cannot wait for the next book in the series. This is another one where it's so complex, and these characters feel like real people, and their relationships are very complex, and I just love everything about this series also. And lastly, I could not live with myself if I didn't mention this one, and that's The Last Argument of Kings by Joe Abercrombie. I absolutely loved this book, like so much. Like, I didn't talk about this one too much because I read this one so fast that it didn't really get a whole lot of airtime on my channel, because I read it in like a day or two, and it's a pretty big book. But I love these characters. I love this world. The first Lost trilogy by Joe Abercrombie in general is just so good, and it has some really great, morally great characters and unlikable characters, but they're done in a way that you really understand who they are and how they feel, and I just loved everything about it, and it was just such a great ending to this series. So the next question is new releases that you haven't read yet but want to. So for this one is actually kind of weird, because for the most part, I've actually read all of the new releases that I wanted to read this year. I didn't have a whole lot of new releases that I actually wanted to read this year. So instead of ones that I didn't read, I wanted to point out a couple of new releases that I did read and I did actually really enjoy, despite what some of my reviews were not as positive as some people would have liked them to be. But I did really enjoy these new releases that I just wanted to mention them. The first one is Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. I read this one like when it first came out. I listened to the audiobook of it. It has a fantastic audiobook. It definitely has just almost poetic quality to it, and it was just an interesting read for that reason. It's very rhythmical, and I loved the writing of the book, and I loved the audiobook. The audiobook production was so well done, but I didn't enjoy the content of the book that much, which is why I ended up giving it 3 stars, and a lot of people weren't happy with me for that. But overall, I did really enjoy that book. And then I also wanted to mention Priory, The Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. It took me like a whole month to read this book, but I did really enjoy it. I ended up only giving it 3.5 stars because it wasn't quite what I wanted it to be, but it was still a really good book for what it was. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed this world. I thought it was a very interesting built world. It had some interesting characters, and it didn't quite go the extra mile for me, but I still really enjoyed it, and I think it was a great new release. The next question is the most anticipated releases for the second half of the year. So I actually did an entire video on this because I had so many, but if I had to pick one, I actually couldn't. I came very close to only picking one, but I'm gonna pick 2. The first one is Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. I absolutely love The Cruel Prince and The Wicked King. I read them for the first time this year. Love them so much, and I cannot wait for the next book in the series. Like, as soon as I read The Wicked King, like, I was itching to pick up Queen of Nothing. I was itching to do it, and that was back when Queen of Nothing was slated for January of next year. So I'm so happy that they moved it up to November. So yes, super excited for Queen of Nothing. Also, The Toll by Neal Shusterman. Absolutely love Scythe and Thunderhead, and I cannot wait for The Toll. Like, cannot wait. I didn't expect to like Thunderhead as much as I did, and just the way Thunderhead ends, like, I need The Toll. I need it right now. So yes, those are the 2. I can't wait for November. November is going to be amazing because it's going to have so many new releases coming out that I am so excited for. Biggest disappointment of the year has got to be Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I don't even want to talk about it, honestly, because I feel like I've talked about it so much on my channel already, but I actually had really high hopes for this book. I don't read a whole lot of YA fantasy, but I usually try and pick out ones that I know I'll like, and it just had all the elements to a YA high fantasy that I should like, but it was done in a way that I really didn't enjoy it. So yeah, it just didn't work for me, and that's all I'm gonna say about it. And the biggest surprise of the year, and that is 100% The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I was really only picked it up because of the BookTube SFF Awards. Like, I wanted to do the read-alongs, so I picked this book up for the BookTube SFF Award read-alongs. I actually borrowed the audiobook from my library. I didn't pick up the physical book. And I went into it completely expecting not to like it. It was, I think, just after I'd finished Children of Blood and Bone, I was just going through a little bit of a reading slump where, like, literally every book that I read, I really didn't end up liking. And this wasn't a book that I knew anything about. I just knew it was YA fantasy, and it wasn't one of the YA fantasies that was on my radar that I might actually like. So I wasn't expecting to like it. And then I was like an hour into the audiobook, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I need a physical copy of this book. And if you've seen the vlogs for this, like, I talked about how I literally got in my car and drove to Books A Million so that I could buy this book. There was only 2 copies of it, and they didn't have a copy of The Wicked King, so I ended up buying that on Amazon and getting it the next day. But like, I bought this book and I read it all night long. Like, it didn't even take me the whole day to finish this book. Like, I finished it so quickly. I absolutely loved everything about this book. It just has all of the tropes that I want from a book, and it's done in such a good way. And I love that Holly Black is not easy on her characters. She's actually very cruel to her characters, which I guess I should have expected since the name of the book is The Cruel Prince. But a lot of times I feel like YA books have like these titles and they don't actually live up to those titles, but yet this one 100% lived up to the title. But even though Prince Carden, which is like the Cruel Prince in here, was definitely very cruel, like, I can still see his motivations and how his mind was working in the background, even though it wasn't from his point of view. I don't even know how Holly Black did it, but it was just written in such a way that I just loved everything about it. And I absolutely loved The Wicked King also. Absolutely, absolutely loved this one. New favorite authors. I have a lot of them. I have so many of them. First of all, Robin Hobb. I absolutely love Robin Hobb. Like everything about her books. I'm trying to figure out how many books by her I've read now. I read 9 of her books this year. I can't even do it on one hand. Read 9 of her books this year, and all of them have gotten at least 4 stars and above. 8 of them have gotten a 4.5 star and above. So like, I absolutely love how she writes. She has very detailed writing, very character focused and character driven with great character development, and yet at the same time, her world building doesn't lack for anything at all. If anything, the only thing that like I would want more from her is a little bit of a faster plot, because her books are really slow, but I absolutely love everything about them. Next one is, of course, Joe Abercrombie. I've only read 3 books by him. Like, I haven't read as many books by him, but I absolutely loved all of the books that I read by him, and I just love the way he writes his characters. They're those characters that, like, if you knew these people in real life, you would hate them. Like, they would be your worst enemy. But knowing them as a character and where they're coming from and like their minds and everything, like I just love every single one of them, and I love the way the tropes are done in his books, and I just can't wait to read more by him because he has so many other books out. I am just so excited to read. So yes, super excited for that. And Joe Abercrombie, definitely one of my new favorite authors. For those of you who are not fantasy fans, Fredrik Backman. I absolutely love Fredrik Backman. I've read 6 books by him now, and I've loved all of them. Like, I've loved all of his books. He's another one of them that has very complex characters. He also brings this very emotional aspect to his books that I absolutely love. And yes, definitely one of my new favorite contemporary authors. And lastly, I have to mention Kristin Hanna, because I've only read 3 books by her, but I've loved all of the books that I've read by her. And she's a historical fiction author, so I don't read a whole lot of historical fiction, but I just want to read everything that she's written because she just has a really great way of writing character relationships, and I just love everything about it. It's done in a very complex and realistic way that you can feel these people like they're real people who live next door to you, or they're your friends or something like that. Like, they're just so well done, and I love everything about her books. So newest favorite crush. Can I say Prince Carden? Possibly Carden, maybe Cass. I don't think I'm quite there yet with Cass. Maybe after I read Crooked Kingdom, but not yet. Now, I think for this one, I'm gonna have to go a little bit more traditional and go with Mr. Darcy from Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I did read this book for the first time this year, and I don't know what it was about it, but like the first half of the book, I wasn't really enjoying it, but Mr. Darcy just really grew on me. And then I watched the BBC adaptation of it, and I didn't care for the actor very much. I really didn't. But his character, just like, I just felt it. Like, I just felt it with his character, and I was just like, oh, Mr. Darcy. Yeah, it's gonna be Mr. Darcy this year. The next question is newest favorite character, and I've got 2. The first one is from the Liveship Trilogy, and that is Malta. She is one of those characters that in the first book, I hated her. Like, absolutely hated everything about her, but her character just grew on me to the point that she was almost one of my favorite characters by the end of the series. I would say, like, if it wasn't for some of the other characters that I really loved, she would have been one of my favorite characters ever in the series. Like, she was just one of those characters that developed so well and grew, and it was just so well done. And she was such an unlikable character at the beginning that I had no way of thinking that I would like her by the end of the series, because I hated her at the beginning of the series. Like, I absolutely hated her. She was so frustrating. But by the end of the series, she was one of my favorites ever, and I just loved that character growth, and it was one of the reasons that made this series one of my favorites ever, because of how well her character development was. The next one has got to be no surprise for you guys, because I talk about it all the time, and that's from the first Law Trilogy by Joe Abercrombie, and that's Glokta. Glokta is such a great character. He is like one of the best fantasy characters that I've ever read. He is just such a cruel and evil person, but at the same time, you can't help but loving him. He's one of those characters that is just kind of like, you're super smart, you're cunning, and you're ruthless, and I feel bad for you because you're kind of pathetic also, but you're in such a position of power that I can't feel bad for you because you're not pathetic, but you are pathetic. Like, oh, like I can't even wrap my head around it, but I just absolutely love everything about Glokta. And if you haven't read the series or don't know what I'm talking about, you need to read this series because Glokta is just one of those characters that you can't live without Glokta. Like, he was just so well done. So the next one is a book that made you cry. And I have to say, I don't cry easily, like at all. I don't think I've ever actually shed a tear, like a physical tear, because of a book. But this book came very close for me, and that's Firefly Lane by Kristin Hanna. Like, this is the only one that I came even like minutely close for, and the reason why is because of the way the character relationships are written in this book. They're just written so well and in such a complex way, and in such a way that's irrevocable. Like, a lot of times the complexities and the conflicts in relationships that are written into books are so easily fixed. In her books, they're not easily fixed. They're not done in a way where they can be fixed. They're just kind of there, and people have to reconcile with that. And the way that it was done in this book, it just got me. Like, I came so close to tears. Like, I could feel it in my throat because of how close I came to it. I didn't quite get there, but I came really close, and it's really hard to get me that close to tears in a book. So, like, kudos to Kristin Hanna because her characters are just so well done, and I absolutely love this book. The next question is a book that made you happy, and I have two of them, which they're just weird books that made me happy because they're not happy. Like, their content of the book is not very happy, but the book itself made me really happy. And the first one is The Blinding Knife by Brent. This is the second book in the Lightbringer series. The first book is The Black Prism, which I actually read last December. I was really sick when I read the book, and it was just the perfect book to read while I was sick because it just got me into that high fantasy mood. And I love that just feeling of falling into a high fantasy story and falling into one of those worlds and just being completely absorbed by that book. And The Blinding Knife did the exact same thing for me. And I don't get that very often in books. Like, even like some of my favorite high fantasy books, I don't get that real like feeling of being in a high fantasy world, and I definitely 100% do with The Blinding Knife. He just has very interesting world building. He has characters that are so interesting. They're not necessarily likable characters. I don't think I necessarily like any of these characters. They're definitely unlikable, but they're complex, and the magic system is just so interesting, and the pacing of the book is, I think, what really gets me with the series, and because it's so fast and it's so hard to put down. Like, I have such a hard time putting down this series whenever I pick it up, and I'm about to read the third one in the series, The Broken Eye. Like, it's my next one to pick up, and I'm so excited about it because every time I pick up one of these books, I'm just so happy about it. Like, I just feel so happy while I'm reading it, even though, like, they're not that happy of books because horrible things are happening in them. So I don't know what that makes me, but they're still so really good. The next one is Thunderhead by Neal Shusterman. I know, like, the book that makes me happy is about murderers, right? No, they're not. I mean, they're kind of like murderers. They kill people, but yeah. The part that really made me happy about this book, though, is the Thunderhead itself. Like, I love the Thunderhead. I love its personality. It just had me laughing out loud at times with, like, the jokes that it would make that were kind of jokes, but not really jokes. Like, I want to read more of Neal Shusterman's work that has artificial intelligences because I feel like he does a really good job of writing artificial intelligence. It was just so well done, and I really enjoyed it, and it actually, like, made me laugh a lot, and it's actually really hard to make me laugh out loud, and this one definitely had me laughing out loud. So the next question is the most beautiful book that you bought, which I'm actually on a book buying ban, so it's been a while since I've bought any books. I haven't bought anything since April, so it's been a few months, but I think I'm gonna have to go with Crown of Feathers by Nicki Preto. When I got this cover, because this is the I'll Create exclusive cover, I was like blown away by it. I absolutely love this cover. I actually don't like the coloring on the original book cover, but I really like this nighttime cover, and I like the purple in the Phoenix, and it actually has significance in the book. And I think when the cover can have significance in the book, it just makes it so much better. And this was also another one of the books that like was really surprising to me that I really loved this year, and I didn't really have another section to put it in, so I really wanted to give it a shout out, because if you haven't read this book yet, I highly recommend it if you really like YA high fantasy, because it was really well done, and it's a new release for this year that I really enjoyed. And lastly, books that you need to read before the end of the year, and there are tons of them. There are a lot of books that I really want to read before the end of the year, but I'm gonna pick two in particular. They're first books in series, so they're not like sequels to books that I've already read. The first one is The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch. I've been wanting to read this book for years now, and I just feel like it's the time. It's finally the time to read it, and I really want to get to it before the end of the year. And I haven't prioritized this one yet, but I really want to get to this one this year, because so many people really love this book and love this series, and I want to see what all the hype is about, and I really want to read it, so I'm super excited for this one. And the second one is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Brandon Sanderson is one of my favorite high fantasy authors, and it's a little sad that I haven't started his like biggest series yet. So I'm really excited to get into this, because I've heard such great things about it, but it's a little intimidating. Let's just be real. I meant to start it last month, didn't quite get to it. So I will get to this eventually, because I'm getting the third book in this series in August. I pre-ordered it like a long time ago, because I'm getting them in mass market paperback, in case you were wondering, and the mass market paperback for that one comes out in August. And so yes, I kind of want to read this before that one comes out, but it's July and it's already halfway through, and I don't think I can finish this book in July. So maybe I'll put it on my TBR for next month. That's my goal for next month. But I really want to read this series also before the end of the year. Let me know down below what your answers to these questions are, especially what your favorite book for this year has been. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. I post videos at least weekly, so consider subscribing. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up to support my channel. All social media links are in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.